Hi, I think in a little bit of a contrast to a lot of presentations, I shall try very hard not to have a single chart or a single graph or a single screenshot in my slides, because I think maybe over the last day and over the next day, you will have a lot of those. I'd really like to perhaps talk about the whys more than the hows. I think all of us can go and read up and listen to seminars to figure out, how do you tweak every bit of a conversion funnel and how all the conversion rate increases multiply up. But I thought it was perhaps a little more interesting to talk about human nature, human behavior, how marketers need to change how they deal with consumers, and really talk about the why as opposed to the mechanics of it. We started a long time ago. Marketing is almost as old as humanity, where we spoke directly to the customer. We talked to them face to face, one to one. That's how it all started. Then somewhere in the middle, big media came in the last 50, 60, 80 odd years. We had the rise of the television screen, but essentially allowed messages to be scaled and distributed widely, which in fact kept the marketer further away from the customer. So you had to go and be present on the device, and you had to believe that the consumer was watching the device. And so hence there was a degree of separation that happened. And that degree of separation ruled the world, and perhaps only now in the last few years has started declining. And now again, it's time where the consumer is saying, well, you know what? My dependence on television as a medium is gone. It's okay. You can talk to me again. I'm happy and willing to talk to you again. And it's really a big move. I mean, in some ways, the extraordinary surge of digital is an incredible opportunity for all of us in the data-driven marketing industry, because you now have the ability to talk to consumers the way they've always wanted to be talked to, not as a group, not as a bucket, not as a target audience, but as individuals, right? Just like pretty much virtually everything in digital is direct. You have the ability, whether it's digital television, digital print, things coming on your iPad, to be able to figure out, who's watching the screen, how long it was watched, when it was watched, and so on and so forth. Slowly, I think that the direct industry is really moving very quickly to take on digital as its core medium of operation. In some ways, perhaps moving from the dead tree medium and mail drops to saying, let's do this smarter. Let's be able to get the message out there. Let's not worry about the medium. Are we doing this on the cell phone, or are we doing this on cellulose? That's become less important over time. From the consumer's point of view, what's really interesting is that I'm really not sure human behavior has changed. We love, we hate, we work, we play, we like to be liked, we like to be loved. And this is pretty much the same the world over. I mean, I think all of us who've worked across geographies have figured out that there's no essential big difference in human nature between one geography and the other. There might be small niggles here and there, but nothing catastrophically different. But the rules of talking to consumers in this new medium have really changed. So what I'd like to really maybe spend a little time on is look at the rules we used to work with and look at the rules now. This entire digital thing is reasonably young. Certainly in India, it's grown from a 5-10 million user base 10 years ago to 145 million user base today. It's really, really grown out there today in India. To put that in perspective, television has been here since the 1970s, but there are only 131 million television homes in India. There are already 145 million internet users in India. So the number of addressable internet devices is larger than the number of addressable television sets in India already. This tipping point happened about 3 months ago. And if you take it further, these 145 million users are spread kind of evenly across mobile and desktop, about 90 million each. And these are significant numbers. And the numbers are growing by the minute. If you look at India's largest television channels, if you take Star Plus, or if you take the Times of India, which is the largest newspaper, the circulation of Times of India is 7.2 million. To put that in perspective, the circulation of Google in India is 107 million. Facebook's monthly usage in India is 51.5 million. Facebook in India is 7 times larger than the Times of India. The viewership of Star Plus in India is 25 million. Google is 4 times larger than Star Plus in India. Facebook is twice as large as Star Plus in India. The average viewership of an IPL match is 3 million in SEC AB. Facebook will give you 5 times as many. So we've come to a point where I do remember when we started in the business, when I came back to India to start in this business, we were an extraordinarily tiny niche medium. Today the numbers are on the side of data. Numbers are on the side of digital. So it is no longer a niche medium. Your reach is larger than that of traditional media. If I take the second number, your cost per reach, the typical cost per reach for a primetime channel like Star Plus is 25,000 rupees CBT, cost per 1,000. The typical cost per 1,000 on the internet in India is 100 rupees. From 0 to 100 rupees. 0 if it's free, and 100 rupees if you're buying stuff at 100 CPM. So you're talking about a difference in cost per 1,000 of 250 times. So you're talking about a medium that's not just larger, but 200 times more cost efficient on a per impression basis than traditional media. The numbers are extraordinarily, hugely on the side of this medium. Right? I'll just start out here 1 second. Right? Once upon a time when we all started in the digital industry, I remember, used to fight for some part of the media pie. The client would do a media plan. There'd be television and print and, some radio and outdoor. And there'll be an asterisk where 1% of the plan or 1.5% of the plan would be said digital and other experimental things. Right? So it was one of those things which was never in the main plan. Today, with many of the clients, especially many clients in banking, financial services, many clients in travel, digital is the largest spend already in India. Right? So it's gone from being the asterisk at the bottom of a media plan to something which has really moved to primacy. This is an opportunity for everybody in the industry, as well as everybody on the client side, to understand if you really want to become a smarter marketer, you must go where the numbers are. The numbers are extraordinarily firmly on the side of digital. Why then do we still have such a huge disparity where digital in India is still 1/5 the size of television? And maybe we can cover that later, and there's a multitude of reasons for that. But the fact is the numbers are incontrovertibly on the side, and they will only, and the lead will only get greater over the next couple of years. The data that we have from Google and Airtel tells us that 2 years from now, we will have 300 million internet users in India. 225 million of them will be on the mobile. 150 million of them will be on the desktop. The rest is the overlap in the middle. These are incredible numbers. This is much larger than 4 times larger than the complete circulation of all print media, all put together all over India. At that point, 300 million people, that's more internet users than the US and Canada and Mexico combined. It would, at that time, be only second to China in terms of the number of people online. Right? What really started was, we all grew up on Kotler's rules, the 4 Ps of marketing. The fact is that was based, Kotler wrote his book in 1959, I understand, based on the research he did on General Motors between 1945 and 1955. We're in 2012. Maybe it's time, perhaps to move on. To say that, okay, that's fine, that's got nice, quaint historical value, but it's not very useful studying Newtonian mechanics when, Einstein's come and done a few things which said, okay, we've got to, push the laws of physics out a little further. Essentially what you've got to do is really deal with a new set of rules, right? The Kotlerian approach was very much product, build a better product, take great ingredients, and you're going to win the market. The new rules are very much about the fact that it's not so much about the product, it's about the brand. Your product sits on the shelf. The brand sits in my mind. The brand sits in my heart. Take care of my emotions. Take care of my sentiments about the brand. I care less about the quality of the plastic and the quality of the cotton and the quality of the rubber that's going into the shoe that makes up Nike. And I care much more about your fair play, whether you're getting the shoes made in China, whether you're paying good, a living wage out there, and what it means to me and whether it lives up to my aspirations. The role of the product has really moved from kind of ensuring quality of atoms to ensuring quality in neurons. And this is a battle that will be even more, over time, neuron-centric. The battle has really moved from the shelf to your mind. The second big rule of Kotler was really all about pricing. You have to figure out, there are some products which are premium products, and there are some products which are discount products. That's really going away. Go to any airline price fare comparison site. Look at the chart of airline fares for the next 3 weeks. You know, all the fares of all the airlines will be high tomorrow. And all of them will be low 1 week from now. And they'll be a little higher 3 weeks from now and lower 5 weeks from now. So your pricing depends on the time of the day. It depends less on what kind of a brand you are. Increasingly over time, people are getting increasingly less conscious about, is this a premium brand or is it a discount brand? Because they're sitting and saying, at the point I want it, what's the price there? Even companies are using pricing. Companies that win are the ones that are using pricing selectively. So because Netscape charged for the browser, Microsoft gave away IE free to kill Netscape and protect its Microsoft Office franchise, at which point Google gave away Google Docs to kill Microsoft Office to protect its advertising franchise, at which point Facebook pretty much gave away the store to try to get traffic to Facebook to try to take away Google's advertising franchise. So essentially, price is a weapon. So there isn't really a method where you go in and say, I am going in with a premium product. This is going to be my pricing. The ability to be variable on pricing is far more than any ability to have fixed pricing. The ability to be agile on pricing and strategic on pricing and tactical on pricing, as opposed to saying, I'm going to get my 4 Ps in an order, before I go out. The third P is about placement or distribution. Once upon a time, the FMCG companies in India and elsewhere had the ability to make sure that only their products reached the guy that they wanted to serve. Today, you go out on the internet, you're on 237 countries. The second your browser goes out, there are no customs controls your browser goes through. You're able to look at any product from anywhere in the world. You're able to get stuff shipped from anywhere in the world. You're able to sit back, and you have farmers in India who look up the CBOE options trade price in Chicago and then figure out the price that they want to sell their grain at sitting in a village somewhere in central India. This is part of our life already today, right? Distribution has become less and less of a problem as we move distribution from atoms to, to bits, to electrons, and it's going to be even more so. This is not as much of a problem as it used to be. And of course, the last issue is the fourth P, which is promotion. Once upon a time, it was believed that the bigger the budget you had, the more successful you were likely to be. But the really interesting thing is, if I look at the world's top 20 brands according to the Interbrand report that came out last year, the 7 new entrants in the last 5 years were brands like Google, Microsoft, Facebook, Twitter, Red Bull, and Ferrari, and so on and so forth. And what's unique about all these brands is they almost spend nothing on advertising. So it's incredible that the only 7 or 8 entrants in the world's top brand list are all people who don't spend any money on advertising. It's quite the opposite of anything that we were taught. What these brands have managed is to get incredible word of mouth happening for them, right? You never saw an ad for Facebook. You don't see ads for Red Bull. You never see ads for Ferrari. You rarely see ads for Starbucks. What these guys have done is they've been able to capture the public imagination and create that buzz and word of mouth. So increasingly, it's not about saying, I'm going to have a bigger budget to hammer this down the audience. Increasingly, it's about saying, how do I create the news so that it goes through human channels and it's whispered into people's ears? How did you hear about Facebook? Somebody told you. How did you hear about Google? Somebody told you. Brands that are coming up today are almost entirely dependent on this ability to get somebody to talk about them. Increasingly, we believe, and we say this, that your marketing IQ is inversely proportional to your marketing budget. The more money you have, the less smart you need to be. And of course, the corollary is the smarter you are, the less money you need to spend. These are overturning the laws of marketing and the 4 Ps as we know it. There is something new that's out there. I don't know what the new book is. Maybe it's not been written yet. But there is really something out here to see in the fact that the way we've learned marketing when we were young is certainly not the ways that's going to work out there in the world today. The old discipline really doesn't work here anymore. Over time, these 8, 9, 10 years that we've been working with some brands, we've kind of figured out a process out here that's begun to work, right? It's not the 4 Ps, but it really is a process that starts with listening. No matter what your brand, what your category, start by listening like a maniac to every single conversation about your brand, about the rivals, about the customers, and about the category. It's not very difficult. Listening is not just about running a Google alert. You must use better tools than Google Alerts. Google Alerts typically will pick up less than 0.5% of the conversation about any brand. So if you get N mentions on Google Alerts, multiply N by 200 to know the actual volume of conversation about your brand, right? So this is about listening to what's being talked about your brand, listening to what's being talked about your rivals, listening to what's being talked in the category. It's not just listening. You sit back and now apply sentiments. Is it positive or negative? Is it neutral or is it neutral? You apply visibility. Is it really negative and really visible? Is it really positive but highly invisible? So you apply scores to each of these, and at the end of it, you kind of figure out what's the reigning sentiment out there. With the brands today, we know that they measure this on a daily basis out here in India. So you have daily scorecards, certainly in the telecom industry, to see how Airtel is doing versus Vodafone versus Idea versus others, every single day. So if Airtel alone is generating 500,000 pieces of conversation a month, you can imagine the other brands also generate hundreds of thousands of pieces of conversation. So in a sector alone, you're tracking 1 million plus pieces of conversation every month just to be able to track sentiment, track visibility, and track the criticality of the topic. Is somebody talking about a price revision or whatever? So you track across these sentiments. You figure out what's being said. Once you listen, the absolute next thing you do is, before you plan, before you do anything, you solve the problem. A lot of the issues that are brought up out there, like Michael said, are people saying, I have a problem. Now you must realize, why do people go out and tweet or put on Facebook that they have a problem? They do that because the standard way of them to deal with you, which is either your website or your customer service line or your phone number, isn't working. Maybe you have an IVR method where somebody has to spend 15 minutes trying to get through the line. He says, forget it, I'm just going to put it on Facebook. Today, after 3 years of work by some of India's leading brands, I mean, the reigning sentiment in India is, you know what, forget it, I'm not going to call them, I'll tweet it out, they will call me, and that's exactly what happens. The volume across these brands, so I can tell you, the volume on India's leading bank today went up from 500 mentions a day to 6,500 mentions a day on an average in the last 2 years. This is not because the online population has gone up by 12 times. It hasn't. It's simply because people are saying, I get redressal here. This is where I'm going to go to solve this. What you need to do is to be able to solve this problem and solve this problem well. Which means now from a marketing point of view, you're saying, this is customer service. Now again, thanks to old, maybe siloed Kotler thinking, customer service does not sit close to marketing. It's not a marketing function. But guess what? It is a marketing function. If you're out there tweeting on behalf of your brand, and somebody comes and says, you know what, I bought this widget from you and it isn't working, you can't say, oops, sorry, I'm marketing. Talk to customer service. You are the brand. You have to solve it. You have to create a channel that says, you know, behind me, I have this one-point mechanism. Behind me is customer service, behind me is marketing, behind me is legal, and behind me is product. Right? You have to coordinate all of this and go back through one vehicle. You can't go back and say, oh, don't talk to me, because I'm not the right person to talk to. These are some really simple issues where you have to actually change the construct of your organization to be able to make this happen. So the key thing is really solve the problem. And we'll come back to the importance of solving the problem again in a while. Why do you need to solve the problem? I'll be actually a little more radical. If somebody has gone out there and said something on Facebook or on Mouth Shut or on Consumer Courts or on Consumer Complaint, actually, and I'll give you a secret, it's not so important to solve the problem. It's much more important to appear to solve the problem. Why is that? Because for everybody who posts a problem, there's 1,000 people who read the post that he has a problem. What you need to do is deal with those 1,000 people and give them the clear impression that you're dealing with something. You're dealing with that issue. Then they'll go away. Nobody expects a brand to be perfect. But what they say is, oh, all right, they had a problem, it's being sorted, I'm cool, I'm moving on. Right? So the first thing you really need to do is go back, not even solve the problem. You need to say, I acknowledge the existence of this problem, I'll get back to you, thank you, and take it offline. Just take it offline. Don't attempt to solve it online. Give them a phone number, give them an email address, and say, we'll do this offline. It's really important because those are little issues where if you don't do these things, these are things that create enormous reputation problems. Right? After you do this, you start with the listening, then you sit back and do the solving of the problems. The third step is the planning and the analytics. This is the cool stuff where, you know, all of us business intelligence folks sit back and say, okay, let me look at trends, let me look at numbers. This is where you sit back and say, you know, what's the reach of my positives? What's the reach of my negatives? What's the equivalent advertising value of my online positives and online negatives and so on and so forth? The PR industry is full of saying we measure column centimeters and tell you what's the value of the positive publicity we generated for you. I can tell you, with one of our clients that we work on in the online space, we've signed an SLA, a service level agreement, to generate for them this year $15 million worth of non-negative publicity online. And it's measured every month. So we have to generate $1.2 million of publicity every month. And that's an SLA that's signed up for. Because these are things you can actually sit and measure. What's the equivalent advertising value? It's not difficult. You put a value to a tweet, you put a value to, based on the number of followers of the person who sees a tweet and so on and so forth. Once you work the math out, it's not very different from figuring out, what's the impression spend you get. And if you can calculate the rate on newspapers, you can absolutely calculate the same rates online. So this is the planning part where you sit back and say, okay, today I'm being seen like this. My competition is being seen like this. So maybe I should do this. This is where we kind of get into a really interesting mode. One of the favorite pictures I have in my mind is that marketing is going to become like air traffic control. You're going to have a set of monitors in front of you, monitoring the flight of your brand in real time, monitoring the flights of other planes all in real time around your brand, figuring out what's going down, what's going up, and if something's going down, you amplify it, something's fine, you let it float. And at 8 p.m. you say, you know what, I'm done. I got to go home, be with my kids. You get up from your chair, somebody else comes, takes your seat, and runs your brand through the night till 5 a.m. in the morning. The world is really moving to a 24/7 space, and we'll come back to that later, where customers are not really asleep at any point in time. So increasingly, we'll move to a point where brands have to be managed in real time. This is what a live brand is. You manage it pretty much from the screens out there. So a lot of what we do is to work towards this vision saying, we want to be the supplier of those screens and the services behind those screens to help people manage brands. So that's our picture. It may or may not happen, but that's the sense we get where we're going to, that marketing managers will be increasingly like air traffic controllers, managing the live, real-time flights of the brands. Now you come to the interesting part. Based on all of this listening, solving, analytics, you say, okay, fine, I know what I need to communicate. But now I need to invent something magical. I need to invent that viral message. I need to get, in Jennifer Aniston's words, the dancing babies and the dogs and, slow motion hair swings and so on and so forth. But I need to create that magical piece of communication, whether it's video, whether it's image. And I can certainly tell you, far and away, the most cost-effective way of doing that is through still imagery. It's not so much through videos. Videos are cheap, a couple of $1,000s, but still image is $20 to $50, right? It's not so much text post. So create that set of imagery that goes viral. And I'll give you an interesting example. Just yesterday, we put out an image of a piece of dessert, a slice of some cake. And we were astounded that in 6 hours, it went out to 75,000 people. 75,000 people liked it, and the reach was some 400,000 people. And this was for one of the clients, Cadbury's or so on and so forth. It was just that we figured out that later on post-analysis, we figured we'd put out a picture of a really appetizing thing around lunchtime. That's all that happened. So there was a mass of, people salivating all over India over a beautiful, luscious picture of a cake. That's all it was. Right? So we figured now, you've done that, you've tested it, now we'll go back, learn something from it, now you know when to schedule, that particular kind of messaging. So there's it could be as simple as a picture, it could be a line, it could be a video, but this is where the magic comes in. This is where you need a creative team to say, okay, fine, we need something that is remark-worthy, that simply goes from mouth to mouth, desktop to desktop, mobile phone to mobile phone, email to email. You want people spreading it around. So obviously the rules here would be different. You have to do something that's a little more risky than the average television commercial, more risque probably than the average television commercial, far more remark-worthy. And you have to be able to do this in guerrilla format. And this is much like making a movie. You don't know what will make a movie a hit. So you produce 20 of them and hope that one of them becomes a hit. So you've got to be able to do this in great volumes. Once you've done that, at some point, you will need to radiate that message out. You will need some media support. You may need to buy advertising. You may need to buy placements. You may need to buy sponsorships. Do this. And do this after you have figured out, and after you've done an integrated plan that involves viral radiation as well as paid radiation. So you don't want to do two different plans saying, agency A, spread it virally, agency B, buy some ads. You want to do one plan, because actually even the bot traffic, the paid for traffic, will again generate viral views. So you want to be able to change it on a daily basis, saying, okay, fine. So with one of our clients, for example, we've set a benchmark that every video we produce must get 2 million views. So it's really about saying, okay, what's the lowest amount of money I need to spend to get 2 million views, right? Given a particular kind of video. So over time, you will figure out what, you'll optimize the formula to be able to get those 2 million views. Why those 2 million views were important was it gave us television rating points equivalent to $1 million spent on TV, right? So you kind of work this out and use your, traditional media metrics to be able to arrive at that. The last thing is really important, and we've talked about this. We actually learned this the hard way. We're talking about coffee shops. We're handling the online, the digital brand management for India's largest coffee shop chain, Cafe Coffee Day. And my copywriters would go home at 8 p.m. on a Friday. And they'd dread coming back to work at 10 or 11 a.m. on a Monday because 70% of the messaging would happen over the weekend. And you work through it all on Monday, by Tuesday morning you reply to everything. But it's just not right that somebody tweets on a Friday evening and you respond to them on a Monday morning. It's just not right. And this was a couple of years ago. How would you feel if you tweeted to a brand and they replied to you 2.5 days later? You're not going to worry about the fact, was it a weekend or was it not a weekend? So we took an interesting decision 2 years ago where we set up a second shift of copywriters and creatives. So we now work 7 days a week. We work 12 hours times 7. At some point we think we'll go 24/7. So we're now able to reply to a Friday night tweet on a Saturday morning. And we are able to get delight. I mean, an interesting thing happened where somebody tweeted out on a Sunday night at 9:30 p.m. It was replied at 10:30 p.m. by Cafe Coffee Day, which was actually us sitting in Bombay while the guy who tweeted thought it was some girl sitting in Bangalore. He proposed marriage to her, as in to us. And he just went out this saying, I want to marry this girl who replied to me at 10:30. So it really was a big win for the brand because it was the first time somebody got an open proposal of marriage and so on and so forth because they replied to a service issue at 9:30 p.m. So there's incredible scope for consumer delight that you can do out there. Today we know large brands are sitting here and saying, well, fine, what is it that it will really take for me to go 24/7? We know that many brands have already gone 12/7 in India. Right? It is a new world. It is a new system. It is a new ethic out there. The key rules out here, there are maybe just 2 rules out here that I can think of. The first and the most compelling rule is be remark worthy. In everything you do, in every bit of messaging, what is the ability of that messaging to have legs of its own and literally walk from person to person without you having to push and spend media money behind this? Look at everything you say, everything you do, everything your website says, everything you wear, everything you talk about. How remark worthy is it? That's really the first one. And the second one is just as simple, it's just being authentic. How authentic are you? How verifiably and demonstrably authentic are you? These 2 things taken together are really the foundation of your brand management going ahead. Being remarkable, being remark worthy, and being authentic, being verifiably authentic. Because if you go out and make a claim, there's 10 people out there who'll sit back and tell you that, no, I figured out the claim was wrong. Right? So as long as you're able to live up to these 2 things, and out of this comes transparency and openness and all the other things. From a consumer's point of view, he must be able to hear about you, i.e. you have to be remarkable, and he must believe that you're the real thing. You have to be authentic. Right? It is also from the brand's point of view, understanding that you will be shellacked. So I mean, many of you will know that Airtel and ICICI and other brands were, a few years ago, were not the most popular brands in India. In the couple of years that it's taken since, the tide has turned. And it's very straightforward. If you're not liked out there, the first thing you must do is go out there and at least participate in the conversation. It's a very human thing. If I walk out of this room, you guys can have a conversation, say, Mahesh was an idiot. It's probably true, actually. Right? But because I am in the room, even if I'm in the room but sitting quietly, you will temper the tone of your conversations. My very presence in the area where you're having a conversation with a brand tempers the tonality of the conversation. Eventually, there are very, very few people who will call you an idiot to your face. They'll temper it down, they'll offer facts, they'll have a reasonable discourse and dialogue. That very simple human insight is really at the core of managing your reputation. Just make your presence felt in the place where your brand is being talked about. That alone will allow you to temper the negativity of the conversation around you. You should understand, we now know that for some brands, we're going to have 2 crises a month because it's happened for the last 36 months. For others, we're going to have 1 crisis a month. You must have a crisis management team. At some point, you will know, okay, fine, a month has gone by, no crisis, something is wrong. You must not panic. There will be crises, there will be a dime a dozen, they'll happen every month, every week. It'll happen, get used to it, have a team, work on it, don't lose your cool. At the same time, it's very, people will say nice things about you, but it's again tough, but you must not go overboard about it. Because guess what? You do that, some other service issue happens, it'll come and slam you on, again. So it is about having the equanimity to take the rough with the smooth and say, okay, fine, both are a fact of life. I will soldier on. There'll be both parts of this in my life. I'll just end very quickly. I have a couple of minutes. There are issues still. We haven't solved every problem. One big issue is Facebook. You have 1 million fans. Facebook does not let you know who those fans are. It does not tell you anything about them. So how the hell do you communicate with them? You're a direct marketing firm, right? So we've actually built software that allows us to be able to get consumer data on a Facebook page with the consumer's permission that Facebook itself doesn't give us. It's important. Otherwise, I have no idea. When I work for a telecom company, the least I want to know is if the guy coming to my page is a user of my company. Right? It's crazy that social networking sites don't give you that data. That's all right. But we have to find ways with opt-in permission to be able to get the data, because without that, you're really, you're shooting blind. You can do all the talk about direct, but you have no ability to target your communication. So today we have the ability to say, fine, I know this person is not not my customer, he's a rival. I can show him different messaging on my Facebook page. I can actually dynamically change the messaging based on understanding the profiles of who's coming to me, right? So there's one issue there. The other issue is really one of integration. If you do Google search today, and that's a good example, your first 2 results will come from SEO. Your 3rd and 4th result will come from YouTube. The 5th and 6th result will come from a news service. The 7th and 8th result will come from a review somewhere. On the left-hand side will be, results in the last 7 days, 1 week, 24 hours, 1 month, 2 months, so on and so forth, which is really your social media updates, right? On the right-hand side, you'll have your SEM ads. So imagine, to be on that one page of Google results, you need to understand SEM, you have to do SEO, you have to do online reputation management, you have to do online evangelist management because you want the bloggers to write about you, you have to do social media management because you want the updates to come, you have to do social video optimization because you want the YouTube, your films to be able to rank on YouTube. So once upon a time, you had to do one little thing called SEO. Today, you have to do 7, 8 gargantuan things, and each of them is worth writing a book about. So it's very, very difficult if you're a client, as many clients are, to say, okay, fine, agency A, do SEO, agency B, do SEM, agency C, do ORM, agency D, do SMO, agency E, do videos. With clients who didn't want to give us the time of the day. Today, the tide has changed. Today, the clients are out there saying, well, I'm willing to take $10 million, 30, 40, 50, 60 crores away from television and put it out there in digital. The interesting thing is you can replace 50 crores of television with 10 crores of digital for greater impact. So there's significant savings for the client because you're saving 80% of your costs right away already, because your efficiency is so much higher out here, right? So it is happening out there today. It's taken a long time coming. The door is open. I think it's our job as an industry to push that door open wider and bring this world back to that era of Mad Men, that era of, knowing where your advertising dollar is going, of knowing how well you can focus and direct a campaign. I'll just end with a small commemorative slide. There were 2 guys who left advertising in the 90s and got into digital. I was one of them. There's another guy called Ramani, some of you may know. He actually died yesterday, and I just wanted to, pay a small bit of homage to him because I think he fought a huge battle. I just wanted to put it up there and remember him out there. Thanks. My name is Mahesh. I'm Mahesh at pinstorm.com. I'm on Twitter at Mahesh Murthy. Thank you very much.